All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at an absolute masterclass in building unbearable romantic tension, all without a single line of on-the-nose dialogue. Now, if you're a fiction writer, you already know the struggle, right? Trying to show how two people are falling for each other without making them just sit down and flatly announce their feelings to the reader, it can feel clunky. Sometimes it feels forced. But today, we're going to look at a source story that beautifully demonstrates how to bypass that problem entirely. We're analyzing a narrative where the silence is literally doing all the heavy lifting.
So, can complete strangers fall in love without ever saying a word? Well, ask yourselves that as we move through today's analysis. For the fiction writers tuning in, this is basically the holy grail of subtext. When you can convince your audience that two people are utterly captivated by one another, but you never actually let those characters confess it, you create an incredibly addictive reading experience. You pull the audience in because they have to decode the relationship right alongside the characters.
To really understand how this works, let's set our baseline and meet the subjects of today's explainer, Yuki and Hiroshi. They're two strangers living across from each other in a quiet Japanese neighborhood. And the source gives us two absolutely crucial pieces of context here. Both of them are married, and both of them are lonely. Right off the bat, the stakes are incredibly high, and the barriers to communication are massive. It's the ultimate paradox. They're two deeply isolated people who manage to create this dangerous, yet really beautiful connection. And because of their marriages, they absolutely cannot just walk up to each other and speak their minds. They are forced to get creative.
Part 1. Transforming routine into tension. It's amazing how Yuki and Hiroshi learned each other's silent language without ever formally planning it. It started out so simply, with just morning routines. The mundane action is Yuki watering her plants by the front door. But the secret meaning? I want to talk. Or take Hiroshi. When he was sitting outside sketching, that wasn't just a hobby. That was a broadcast. It meant, my wife is busy, I'm free. This shows writers exactly how to code a scene using purely physical actions. The reader just sees someone watering plants, but they feel the longing. It provides perfect plausible deniability for the characters, but absolute transparency for the audience. Part 2. Mastering the timed accident.
Okay, so once you establish a routine, the very next step is manipulating time. Look at the excruciatingly precise choreography required here to make an accidental grocery run feel inevitable. Yuki leaves at exactly 3:15 p.m. Hiroshi magically appears at 3:20 p.m. And by 3:30 p.m., they are meeting up at the vending machine. For a writer, a timeline like this is an absolute goldmine. It shows intention, right? It shows that both characters are obsessively tracking each other's movements. They're putting in serious, calculating work just to manufacture a coincidence so they can share the same physical space. You don't need a single romantic declaration when the schedule itself becomes a love letter.
But what actually happens when they finally do speak during these planned coincidences? Well, they meet at the vending machines and they talk for 30 whole minutes. But, and here is the secret sauce for any writer, they discuss everything except what they really felt. You try talking about canned coffee and the weather for 30 minutes straight. The tension is sustained precisely because the characters are speaking completely around the subject. They're talking about groceries or the neighborhood, but the subtext is just roaring underneath it all. They never directly address their true feelings, and that forces the reader to listen to the silence between their words.
Part 3. Environmental subtext and signals.
When characters aren't in the same physical space, objects essentially become their vocabulary. Just take a second to consider how an object as simple as a window treatment can tell a profound story. Curtains half open? The hidden messages? Thinking of you. Lights left on late into the night? That perfectly translates to couldn't sleep either. A red scarf being worn or displayed? Meet me tomorrow. This is exactly how you build a world where the very architecture of the setting is speaking. By assigning deep emotional weight to inanimate objects, you allow your characters to communicate 24 hours a day across a physical distance right under the noses of everyone else.
Now, think about the contrast between these two concepts. On one hand, you have the spoken word, the actual everyday conversations happening inside their homes with their spouses. And on the other hand, you have the silent signals, the curtains, the lights, the scarves. The source material makes a stunning observation here. It points out that these tiny, silent signals became vastly more intimate than any actual words their spouses ever spoke to them. As a writer, this proves that volume simply does not equal intimacy. A blaring spoken conversation can be completely hollow, while a single light bulb left on at 2 a.m. can hold the weight of an entire romance.
Part 4. Building your secret language.
So, how do we actually construct this engine of tension in our next chapter? It really boils down to 3 actionable steps. Step 1, establish a routine. Give your character a mundane, repeatable action. Watering a plant, walking a dog, getting coffee. Make the reader totally used to seeing it. Step 2, assign a secret meaning. Tie that specific action to an emotional state or desire, and let the other character notice it. And finally, step 3, break or escalate the pattern. Once that language is locked in, use it to drive your plot. Have the character leave the light off when it should be on. Have them wear the red scarf when the stakes are at their absolute highest. How can you apply these 3 steps to your current manuscript right now?
The sheer beauty of this technique is perfectly summarized in the source material. It says, an entire secret world that existed in plain sight, built from nothing but longing and perfect timing. And honestly, that is exactly what you're trying to construct for your readers. A world that exists layered right on top of the mundane, everyday reality. It costs nothing but attention to detail, but it yields the most incredible, agonizing tension you can possibly put on a page.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. But I want to leave you with one final, vital question. Look at your own work in progress. Look at your protagonists. What secret language will your characters speak? How can you make them say everything while saying absolutely nothing at all? Take these mechanics of show don't tell, apply them to your own scenes, and just watch the tension in your story completely transform.